Hi everyone, we're here live in London for the Digital Identity Summit 2019, together with Paul Rodgers, Chairman of the European Payment Association Vendorcom. I am Mirela Ciobanu, Senior Editor with the Paypers. And today we are going to discuss one of the hottest topics of the industry right now, is strong customer authentication and getting ready for September 2019. But first, Paul, can you tell us something about yourself, Vendorcom? What's your role within the organization?
So I set up Vendorcom back in 2003 during the rollout of Chip and Pin. And basically, Vendorcom is a membership organization that brings together the key players in the European payment scene. So it's a forum and a hub to make sure people can be connected with each other, connected with all the industry issues, and connected with where the market's going.
Oh, okay. Great. And last evening, when the Digital Identity Summit kicked off, you talked about strong customer authentication and strong customer authentication readiness, or not, in some cases. And you also mentioned about the fact that you keep something like a tracker, a counter of the days left till SCA comes into force. Can you tell us more about this tracker, some striking things you found there?
Okay, so in the work that I'm doing in Vendorcom and also in my role with the Payment Systems Regulator panel, we've been watching what's going on in the regulatory scene. And for the last 3 years in Vendorcom, we've been looking at the new regulatory technical standards for strong customer authentication as part of PSD2. And they became law last March 2018, and they come into effect. And they're going to be enforced from the 14th of September this year. What we're finding is that the market really just isn't ready. Whether a lot of people are focusing on the merchants not being ready, but actually most organizations right across the whole payments landscape aren't. So what I'm doing now, as you referred to, is I have got a tracker that I'm publishing each day on LinkedIn. Okay. And if you want to follow it, it's on the hashtag SCA Day. And so it's the countdown to what I'm calling the SCA cliff edge, because I think that's going to be quite a stark day if we continue on the current regulatory enforcement process.
Yeah, so you mentioned the SCA cliff edge, and also you raised other concerns like the regulators' negligence towards their part played within the SCA, maybe lack of e-commerce interoperability after September 2019. Can you address these concerns, please?
Yeah, one of the things that I find with regulators, and at one level it's no fault of the regulator, but they create regulation based on historic or current detriments in the market, and then there's suddenly an urgency in order to get this new regime in place. And so because they're a little bit distant from the market, they don't recognize what the real market dynamics are and show very little empathy to how their regulations might actually be implemented in practice. And so that's the real challenge that we're facing now, because the market just really hasn't had time to prepare. And so I think we now need to work very closely with the regulator to make sure that they can mandate the sort of level of collaboration that's going to be required to make it possible, if not to hit the deadline, certainly to find a transition period over which the market will actually be ready. Because it's got big economic implications. I calculate that those economic implications for the UK market are around £45 billion that will be lost in the e-commerce market, and across Europe as a whole, probably around 160 billion euros.
So
it requires urgent attention.
Yeah. And going to this urgent attention and let's say some empathy from regulators, EBA released some opinion on the RTS. Can you share some of the ideas, findings from the EBA's opinion with viewers?
Yes, so just last Friday, the 21st of June, the regulator put out an opinion. And thankfully, it's one of the major points was that they've recognized the complexity of implementing the regulatory technical standards and are allowing a period of supervisory, perhaps leniency. Now, exactly what that means, I've no idea. They've also said that we should look at rapid compliance. Again, not quite sure what your sense of rapid and my sense of rapid would be, and certainly have no idea what their sense of a quick response is going to be. But I think they've recognized that we need to work with the market on this. They've also made some very clear pronouncements on each of the different elements for two-factor authentication, knowledge, possession, and inherence. And some factors, some elements that the industry were working towards in order to comply are now being ruled out as mechanisms that they could use in two-factor authentication.
Okay. But anyway, overall, we want this story to end up well.
Yes, of
so
course.
you kind of you invited all the stakeholders to collaborate. How do events like the Digital Identity Summit support this idea of collaboration and making things happen?
Well, it was really encouraging last night to have been asked to present on strong customer authentication. And yeah, there was originally 20 seats in the room. They brought another 25 in, and there were 10 people standing. So it just demonstrates how important this issue is. And so that, for a start, just bringing all of the different people together to help share the issues and ask them what potential solutions there might be. So that's great in that session that I did. The wider summit, really, in my mind, is actually not just a one-off event, because actually this day last year, I was in Amsterdam supporting ThreatMetrix in their digital identity meetup. So they have so many of these events right across the year. And for me, this is the pinnacle of that, bringing everybody together in one meeting.
Okay, great. So thank you, Paul, for all these insights and all these twists of the strong customer authentication story. And thank you for you, the reader, for watching us. And let's watch out the space and Paul's counter to see, are we ready or not for strong customer authentication?